Hare Krishna, somebody can please lead the invocation prayers.
Can I do, Prabhu?
Go ahead.
Om Vandiyanatimirandashya Jnananjalashilakaya Tatguru me Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovisyam Stapinam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatandeshva Padantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapatakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sargana Kalitam Kavitam Chajivam Satvaitam Savadudam Parijana Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sargana Lalitam Sri Visham Kavicham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpa Varubhishya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Paditanam Pavanesho Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming to read and discuss Srila Prabhupada and Krishna's instructions, and thank you in advance for taking the responsibility to apply these teachings in your respective lives. From today, we will start Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. I will do a lot of talking to set the base, to explain a little bit about the cantos and the connection and everything. Some of it will be repeat for you all. So we have the visual on the screen that how Srimad Bhagavatam, all cantos form the part of the Lord's body. That canto 1 and 2 starts as the lotus feet, and canto 12 all the way goes to the crown. So canto 1 and 2 are Lord's lotus feet, and they form a perfect prelude to rest of Srimad Bhagavatam. Some key points from cantos 1 and 2 are that establishes Bhakti Yoga as the topmost spiritual path. Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and fountainhead of all incarnations. The history of Srimad Bhagavatam is described. Wonderful prayers by Arjuna, Kunti Maharani, Bhishma Dev, and then birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj are discussed. The process of creation is discussed. And then in Canto 2, Chapter 9, we discussed the Chatur Shloki Srimad Bhagavatam verses. And Canto 2, Chapter 10 ends with the definition of 10 subject matters discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Cantos 3 and 4 are Lord's thighs. And some key points from Canto 3 are mainly covers the topics of Sarga, the primary creation by the Lord, and Visarga, the secondary creation by Brahmaji. All these are described through the conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidura. Jiva's suffering in mother's womb as well as outside are discussed. The family life is discussed. The devotional Sankhya Lord Kapila teaches us. A lot of points on Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Gyan Yoga in these sections. And then Canto 3, chapters 13 to 19, we had Lord Varahadev's pastime. There was also a description of Vaikuntha Loka and ideal household life is discussed with the example of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. And of course, there are a lot of teachings of in the Lord Kapila Dev's section. So, Canto 4, the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu is described. So you will remember this slide from earlier. So this is Canto 4 overview. Canto 4 is titled The Creation of the Fourth Order, where the initial chapters talk about devotional service in the mode of ignorance. So if you recall, Canto 3, chapter 29, verses 8, 9, and 10 discusses devotional service in the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness. So Canto 4, the first 7 chapters about Daksha Yajna is devotional service in the mode of ignorance. Then Canto 4, the Dhruv Maharaj section is devotional service in mode of passion. And then Canto 4, the Prithu Maharaj section is devotional service in the mode of goodness. Some highlights from Canto 4 are that positive pastimes of Lord Shiva, Suniti, Dhruv Maharaj, Shri Narad Muni, Anga, Prithu Maharaj, Prachetas are discussed, who all showed extraordinary examples of devotional service. One can and one should also learn from the unfavorable attitudes of devotional services, from the mistakes of Daksha, Suruchi, Vena, Indra, and Prachinibari. There are wonderful prayers in Canto 4 of Dhruv Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, Prachetas. There are examples of Uttanapada, Dhruv Maharaj, Anga, Prithu Maharaj, Prachetas, who ruled with responsibility while practicing devotional service and then retiring in a timely manner, in an exemplary way for spiritual advancements. Canto 4 has glorious examples of Vaishnavis such as Anusuya, Suniti, Archi, Vaidarbhi, who were devoted to their husbands. One positive or negative qualities of the various characters in Canto 4 are: Daksha had pride and anger. Shiva showed tolerance. Sati is example of disobedience. Brahmaji is example of responsibility. Suruchi used harsh speech. Suniti showed patience. Dhruv Maharaj showed determination. Shri Narad Muni is example of inspiration. Uttanapada regretted his actions. Indra, of course, has envy. Prithu Maharaj showed forgiveness. Archie showed dedication to the husband. Anga taught detachment. Prachini Bhari Sat is the example of attachment. And Prachetas are the example of cooperation, unity to please the Lord. So what you have on the slide is largely Canto 4 except the bottom corner which is in green, which is about Priyavrata. So Brahmaji's children are Swayambhuva Manu and spouse Satrupa, and Swayambhuva Manu's son Priyavrata dynasty is discussed in Canto 5. So Canto 5 corresponds to the lotus navel area of the Lord. So if I go back to the slide, so you see it says the waist or the navel area, Canto 5, the creative impetus. That's where Canto 5 is. So Canto 5 is divided into two distinct sections. Sukadev Goswami continues the discussion on Visarga, the primary creation, and describes the dynasty of Priyavrata. So the two distinct sections, section A covers units 21, 22, and 23 on Priyavrata, Rishabdev, and Bharat Maharaj, respectively. I'll soon have it on the screen. And if you go back to Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 1, which describes the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam, the second section of Canto 5, which is section B, which is unit 24, is on the geography of the universe, which discusses sthanam. So 2.10.1, the 10 subject matters, one of them is sthanam. Sthanam means the right situation for living entities. So section B of Canto 5, unit 24, discusses the horizontal and vertical structure of the universe, the positioning of the various planetary systems within the universe. So on screen, I have the unit 3, the first unit in Canto 5. Unit 21 is titled Maharaj Priyavrata, covers chapters 1, 2, and 3. So Priyavrata is the elder son of Swayambhuva Manu. Priyavrata exemplified the spirit of sacrificing one's personal desires to be obedient to the orders of superiors. Now, Priyavrata is very unique that he lived for a very, very long time, almost the entire lifespan of Swayambhuva Manu's Manvantara, the 71 Yuga cycles. So by the time he was born, from that time on. So all others personalities like Dhruv Maharaj, Uttanapada, Utkala, Prithu Maharaj, Prachetas, they all came and went. But Priyavrata lived almost the entire Manvantara of Swayambhuva Manu. Priyavrata wanted to be in the renounced order. Still, upon the request from superiors, Brahmaji and Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata took charge of father's kingdom. Priyavrata ruled in exceptional way. He divided the Bhumandala into 7 islands and appointed his sons as rulers of these islands, and then he retired. So Priyavrata showed how devotees can achieve great things by being surrendered to the Lord, which is discussed in Canto 5, Chapter 1. In the material world, there is also a similar, a very close example that there is a spiritual master, His Grace Sankarshan Das Adhikari. He also visits Toronto Temple many times. You would know some of his disciples. So he was ready to take sannyas. He went through all the process to take sannyas. Exactly how Priyavrata was completely renounced Paramhamsa. And then ISKCON Governing Council asked His Grace Sankarshan Das Adhikari to become a grahastha, because at the time ISKCON was having a lot of grahastha devotees and they wanted a grahastha spiritual master. So Sankarshan Das Adhikari goes on to marry. He is still a Paramhamsa. But just to satisfy the authorities, instead of taking sannyas and become a spiritual sannyasi spiritual master, Sankarshan Das Adhikari goes on to become a grahastha spiritual master. Even today, he is a spiritual master. So that's what Priyavrata also showed, and Sankarshan Das Adhikari followed that. So Priyavrata plus his spouse Barismati begot sons Agnidhara plus 9 other sons plus a daughter Urjaswati. So Agnidhara, although a son of a pure devotee, was born when Priyavrata was lusty. Therefore, Agnidhara developed a desire to enter Pitraloka. Agnidhara married celestial damsel Purvachitti and begot 9 sons headed by Nabi. Nabi desired a son like Supreme Personality of Godhead. I will remember this conversation of Atri Muni in the previous canto, that Atri Muni also desired a son like the Supreme Lord, not Supreme Lord himself. So this is considered a material desire. So Nabi also had the same desire to have a son like the Supreme Lord. Now, although this is a material desire, because Nabi is not desiring Lord as a son, rather he is wanting a son like the Supreme Lord. Still, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as Rishabdev, the son of Nabi. So this Rishabdev is unit number 22 in Canto 5, which covers chapters 4, 5, and 6. So Rishabdev is Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Rishabdev has 100 sons, and they were categorized in Varnas according to qualities and work, and not by birth. So Rishabdev's powerful teachings on transmigration, liberation, and bhakti form one of the most vital sections of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada has, I would say, about little over 700 lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam, and series of lectures on two sections stand out from the 700 lectures, 700 plus lectures. So Srila Prabhupada has a lot of lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6, that the essence of all scriptures is to do devotional service. So 1.2.6 is obviously a very, very important and a key memorization verse. Savai pumsa paro dharma yato bhakti radokshaje ahetuki apratahita yayat suprasiddhati. So Srila Prabhupada has a lot of lectures on 1.2.6, and plus the next two verses, 7 and 8, they are linked verses, because the essence of all scriptures is bhakti. And the next section, Srila Prabhupada has a lot of lectures on Canto 5, Chapter 5, on the teachings of Rishabdev. The next unit number 23 in Canto 5 is on Bharat Maharaj, covering chapters 7 to 14. So Bharat Maharaj is the eldest son of the 100 sons of Rishabdev, and Bharat Maharaj is the topmost devotee. All of us will remember the example of Bharat Maharaj, that after retirement, due to misplaced compassion for a deer, Bharat Maharaj got distracted from his sadhana, and thus Bharat Maharaj got the next life of a deer, because Bharat Maharaj remembered the deer at the time of death. So Bharat Maharaj becoming deer is an example that distractions can come at any stage and at any level. Bharat Maharaj is so elevated, renounced, pure devotee. Still he ends up getting the body of a deer. Therefore, one needs to be extremely cautious on the spiritual path. And then the deer in the third life takes the birth as Jada Bharat. So the Bharat Maharaj's 3 lives are discussed in Unit 23. From Bharat Maharaj to Dear to Jada Bharat, there are important learnings from Jada Bharat also. That Jada Bharat was internally conscious of the Supreme Lord, but externally behaved like a dull man. Therefore, people mistreated Jada Bharat. One time, some dacoits tried to sacrifice Jada Bharat to the goddess Kali. But Kali protected Jada Bharat because Kali knew that Jada Bharat is a pure devotee. And another time, Jada Bharat was forcefully engaged to carry the palanquin of King Rahugana. So this King Rahugana also treated Jada Bharat very harshly. But later, Rahugana realizes that Jada Bharat is actually a pure devotee, a Vaishnava. And there is a very important discussion between Jada Bharat and Rahugana, where Jada Bharat describes the forest of material enjoyment causing entanglement. So Canto 5 up to chapter 14 is section A, covering Priyavrata, Agnidhara, Nabi, Rishabdev, Bharat Maharaj, and Jada Bharat. I will pause here for any questions, comments, realizations.
Prabhuji, there is a question lingering in my mind.
Yeah.
Such an elevated soul, why did they ask the benediction? Lord like, not Lord himself. How they missed it? That's where I'm wondering that.
So all these are special pastimes. These are meant for us to learn, right? That don't have material desires. Don't desire something like this. Get attached to the Lord. Like just as in the material world, when you touch a hot pot, how do you know it is hot? Somebody, uncle, you tell me, how do you know it is hot?
Unless you touch it.
Yeah, but even after you touch it, why do you think it is hot? Because you know from experience that this is how hot feels like. That's why you know that this is hot. Similarly, Bhagavatam has examples of positive and negative. That positive we should do and negative we should avoid. This is what Bhagavatam says. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. These are the 2 examples.
Got it, Prabhu.
Right? If you remember the verse from Nectar of Devotion, Satatam Vishnu Smaram, and I forget the verse right now. Satatam Vishnu Smaranam Vismartava na Jat. Let me bring up the verse, I forget. So always, yeah, Sridhar Prabhu, you want to recite?
Smartavyam, Smartavyam, I remember. Smartavyam is a word.
Yeah. Let me bring up the verse, but thank you for remembering. That I have on the screen, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. Vi Smartavyo na Jatuse. First line says Smartavya Satatam Vishnu means always remember Krishna. And Vi Smartavyo na Jatuse. Never forget Krishna. This is the essence of all regulations, and therefore the line says, Sarve Vidhi Nishedasya Etayar Eva Kinkara, that these are the only two regulations in all spirituality. All other rules and prohibitions that we follow are servants on these two principles, that always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna.
Thank you.
Everybody on the same page so far?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So the second section of Canto 5 is unit number 24, is the geography of the universe. From chapters 15 to 26, although chapter 15 is just a leftover discussion on the descendants of Priyavrata's dynasty, including Sumati, Gaya, and Pratiha. The rest of the chapters 16 to 26 describe the construction of the universe. So at the start of Canto 5, Priyavrata divided the universe in 7 islands. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj inquires about the dimensions of these islands. So Sukadeva Goswami describes the horizontal and vertical structure of the universe. So when we finish reading this, you will wonder that why is NASA trying to go to space, or trying to go to moon, or trying to go to Mars? No, all that information, including the length, breadth, and the entire dimension of the entire universe, not just the seventh plate where NASA doesn't even know the seventh plate where we are. What are they wasting all this money for? And the result is NASA and all the countries all around the world are creating so much junk in the space. It's complete waste of time. Now, this section B on the geography of universe is very difficult to comprehend. Although it looks like a lot of chapters, but they are very, very small chapters. Many don't even have purports. And when we'll discuss, you may ask questions, and many times I may also not have an answer. That I am nobody. His Grace, Chaitanya Chandas, who is such an elevated soul, it's his words. He says, this Canto 5 description of the horizontal and the vertical structure of universe is very difficult to comprehend. He says that. So we are definitely going to hit that wall. So we have chapters 16 to 19 on the Jambudvipa, where the various components of the universe are described. That chapter 16 as Ilavrata Varsha. Chapter 16 also describes the Mount Sumeru. Chapter 17 discusses Ganga River. 17 to 19 also has prayers offered by residents of 9 Varshas of Jambudvipa to their respective worshipable deities. And chapter 19 also describes Bharat Varsha, its mountains, rivers, inhabitants, and the glorifications of demigods. Chapter 20 discusses Bhumandala, The remaining 6 islands of Bhumandala, their varshas, surrounding oceans, mountains, the golden land, their characteristics and dimensions. And chapters 21 to 26 describes the vertical structure of the universe. So chapter 21 to 23 discusses the movements of the sun, orbits, the altitudes of the planets. And chapter 24 to 26 discusses the subterranean planets like Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patal. So take a snapshot of what we have on the screen. This is a high-level overview of Canto 5. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay.
As just a realization, as we already studied in the first canto, again, this is coming to tell like how much more we are going to know about the entire universe, geographical distribution and all. It's again showing that how Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. Canto 2, chapter 10 is titled Srimad Bhagavatam is answers to all everything. Very good realization. Thank you for sharing. Shivangi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, just a question. In this chapter, you said that somebody divided the earth into 7 islands.
Yeah, not
Yes.
Earth, universe. So Priyavrata divided the
Mhm.
universe in 7 islands, and those are all these varshas. So that get discussed in the second part of Canto 5. Yeah.
Okay. So the earth was always 7 continents?
Earth used to be just one continent. Over a period of time, it got divided, and you know how we have earthquakes happening and with the plates moving underneath.
Okay.
That's how the evolution happened and it got divided. But originally, Earth used to be one planet, or there was no such divisions. Of course, it's quite far away. Later on, even after the divisions, say we have discussed in Canto 1 that Yudhishthir Maharaj used all the continents that we have on Earth, even after the division. But later on, it got divided among various countries and various rulers. Shivangi.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shalini Gopal.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes, the same thing which you just mentioned, that the entire, all the continents together were known as Bharatvarsha.
Correct. Uncle.
Prabhuji, what I realized from this slide, this canto further expands the universal structure of creation.
Correct.
Descriptions of planetary system, cosmic oceans, sacred mountains, revealing the vastness and divine organization of the Lord's creation.
Correct.
This teaching reminds us the material world, though magnificent, is temporary and meant to inspire inquiry into our mind towards the truth. That is what I feel.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Thank you. Correct realization. Thank you for sharing. Very good. So, we are going to cover from today, start discussing the unit 21 on Maharaj Priyavrata, which are chapters 1, 2, and 3. So, Canto 5, Chapter 1, before the verses start, there is a nice overview given. Prabhupada explains very nicely that overview. We should read, and some part I already explained, and Prabhupada explains all of that. Is our dear Aditi able to read that overview before the verses? Canto 5, Chapter 1.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I would read it.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. This chapter describes how King Priyavrata enjoyed royal opulence and majesty and then returned to full knowledge. King Priyavrata was detached from worldly opulence and then he became attached to his kingdom. But finally, he again became detached from material enjoyment and thus achieved liberation. When King Parikshit heard about this, he was struck with wonder, but he was somewhat bewildered as to how a devotee with no attachment from material enjoyment could later become attached to it. Thus, in astonishment, he questioned Sukadeva Goswami about this. In response to the king's inquiry, Sukadeva Goswami said that devotional service, being transcendental, cannot be deviated by any material influences. Priyavrata had received transcendental knowledge from the instructions of Narada, and therefore he did not want to enter a materialistic life of enjoyment in a kingdom. He accepted the kingdom, however, at the request of such superior demigods as Lord Brahma and Lord Indra, the king of heaven. Everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of God, the Supreme Controller, and everyone must work accordingly. Just as a bull is controlled by a rope tied to its nose, so all conditioned souls are forced to work under the spells of the modes of nature. A civilized man, therefore, works according to the institution of Varna and Ashrama. Even in materialistic life, however, no one is free to act. Everyone is compelled to accept a certain type of body offered by the Supreme Lord and thus be allotted different grades of happiness and distress. Therefore, even if one artificially leaves home and goes to the forest, he again becomes attached to materialistic life. Family life is compared to a fortress for practicing sense control. When the senses are controlled, one may live either at home or in the forest, there is no difference. When Maharaj Priyavrata followed the instructions of Lord Brahma, accepted the royal throne, his father Manu left home for the forest. Maharaj Priyavrata then married Barhishmati, the daughter of Vishwakarma. In the womb of Barhishmati, he begot 10 sons named Angidra, Idmajivha, Yagnabahu, Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Grita Prishta, Savana, Medatithi, Vitihotra, and Kavi. He also begot one daughter whose name was Urjaswati. Maharaj Priyavrata lived with his wife and family for many thousands of years. The impressions from the rims of Maharaj Priyavrata's chariot wheels created 7 oceans and 7 islands. Of the 10 sons of Priyavrata, 3 sons named Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana accepted sannyasa, the 4th order of life, and the remaining 7 sons became the rulers of the 7 islands. Maharaj Priyavrata also had a second wife, in whom he begot 3 sons named Uttama, Raivata, and Tamasa. All of them were elevated to the post of Manu. Sukadeva Goswami thus described how Maharaj Priyavrata achieved liberation. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Any questions, comments, realizations? Very good summary Prabhupada has given at the very start. So, Unit 21 is titled Maharaj Priyavrata, covering chapters 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 1 is titled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata, is divided into 7 parts. Part 1, verses 1 to 4. Parikshit's questions about Priyavrata. Part 2, verses 5 and 6. Sukadeva Goswami's reply, the glory of devotional service. Part 3, verses 7 to 10. Lord Brahmaji's arrival. Part 4, verses 11 to 19. Brahmaji's reasons to convince Priyavrata. Part 5, verses 20 to 22. Priyavrata accepts Lord Brahmaji's request. Part 6, verses 23 to 35. Priyavrata's rule, marriages, descendants, and wonderful activities. Part 7, verses 36 to 41. Priyavrata's repentance and renunciation. So verse number 1 describes that King Parikshit was amazed that how come Priyavrata got into household life. So he's inquiring right now. Shivangi, verse 1, translation and purport.
Hare Krishna, text 1. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O great sage, why did King Priyavrata, who is a great, self-realized devotee of the Lord, remain in household life, which is the root cause of the bondage of karma, fruitive activities, and which defeats the mission of human life? Purport. In the 4th canto, Srila Shukadeva Goswami explains that Narada Muni perfectly instructed King Priyavrata about the mission of human life. The mission of human life is to realize oneself and then gradually to go back home, back to Godhead. Since Narada Muni instructed the king fully on this subject, why did he again enter household life, which is the main cause of material bondage? Maharada Parikshit was greatly astonished that King Priyavrata remained in household life, especially since he was not only a self-realized soul but also a first-class devotee of the Lord. A devotee actually has no attraction for household life, but surprisingly, King Priyavrata enjoyed household life very much. One may argue, why is it wrong to enjoy household life? The reply is that in household life, one becomes bound by the results of fruitive activities. The essence of household life is sense enjoyment, and as long as one engrosses his mind in working hard for sense enjoyment, one becomes bound by the reactions of fruitive activities. This ignorance of self-realization is the greatest defeat in human life. The human form of life is especially meant for getting out of the bondage of fruitive activities, but as long as one is forgetful of his life's mission and acts like any ordinary animal, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he must continue his conditioned life of material existence. Such a life is called Svarupa Vismriti, forgetfulness of one's constitutional position. Therefore, in Vedic civilization, one is trained in the very beginning of life as a brahmachari. A brahmachari must execute austerities and refrain from sex indulgence. Therefore, if one is completely trained in the principles of brahmacharya, he generally does not enter household life. He is then called a Naishtika brahmachari, which indicates total celibacy. King Parikshit was thus astonished that the great King Priyavrata, although trained in the principles of Naishtika brahmacharya, entered household life. The words Bhagavata Atmaramaha are very significant in this verse. If one is self-satisfied as is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is called Bhagavata. There are different types of satisfaction. Karmis are satisfied in their fruitive activities, Jnanis are satisfied to merge into the effulgence of Brahman, and devotees are satisfied to engage in the Lord's service. The Lord is self-satisfied because he is fully opulent, and one who is satisfied by serving him is called Bhagavata Atmaramaha. Manusyanam Sahasresu. Out of many thousands of persons, one may endeavor for liberation, and of many thousands of persons attempting to become liberated, one may achieve liberation from the anxieties of material existence and become self-satisfied. Even that satisfaction, however, is not the ultimate satisfaction. The Jnanis and the Karmis have desires, and so do the yogis, but devotees have no desires. Satisfaction in the service of the Lord is called akama, freedom from desire, and this is the ultimate satisfaction. Therefore, Maharaja Parikshit inquired, how could one who is fully satisfied on the highest platform be satisfied with family life? The word parabhavaha in this verse is also significant. When one is satisfied in family life, he is doomed because he must have already forgotten his relationship with the Lord. Prahlada Maharaja describes how the activities of family life implicate one more and more. Atmapatam graham andakuppam. Household life is like a dark well. If one falls into this well, his spiritual death is surely assured. How Priyavrata Maharaja remained a liberated Paramahamsa even within family life is described in text 23 of this chapter. Hare Krishna.
Right? Family life is already doomed because family life is andakupam, a dark well covered with grass. So, mission of human life is to realize oneself and go back home to Godhead. Now, a devotee actually has no attraction for household life. We just read. But surprisingly, here Priyavrata enjoyed household life. And that's why Parikshit Maharaj is surprised that he is a renounced person. And in the purport, therefore, Prabhupada says, one may ask, what is wrong with enjoying household life? And the answer is that one becomes bound by the results of rotative activities in household life. Therefore, household life is like a dark well. Because the essence of household life is sense enjoyment. And as long as one is absorbed in his mind in working hard for sense enjoyment, therefore he is bound by the reactions of fruitive results. So this ignorance of self-realization is the greatest defeat in human life. Therefore, Vedic civilization is beginning, you are taught as brahmachari. So some stay as brahmachari throughout their life, some get married, and those who get married, they are not attached because they have learned the principles, just as I have given the example of our dear Dwarkanath Prabhu from Toronto Temple multiple times, that Dwarkanath Prabhu was also living in the Toronto Temple ashram as brahmachari, then he got married. But look what both husband and wife are doing. 24 hours almost, they are serving Krishna at the temple. So Priyavrata is also the example that yes, he entered Grahastha life upon the instruction of his superior, Swayambhuva Manu and Brahmaji, but he continues to stay as Paramhamsa. Questions, comments, realizations? The next verse is Parikshit Maharaj is just justifying the question that he has already asked. Maharaj Jija, verses 2 to 4 translations.
Hare Krishna. Devotees are certainly liberated persons. Therefore, O greatest of Brahmanas, they cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs. Text 3. Elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are fully satisfied by the shade of those lotus feet. Their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members. Text 4. The king continued, O great Brahmana, this is my great doubt. How was it possible for a person like Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children, and home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Sri Krishna consciousness? Text 5.
Hold on. So now Sukadeva Goswami starts giving answers. So part 2 is verses 5 and 6, titled Sukadeva Goswami's reply, The Glory of Devotional Service. So we'll read verse 5, and I'm pretty sure some of you may have a question. So verse 5 describes two obstacles in bhakti. One is offending a Vaishnava. So this is obstacle number 1. And second obstacle is Lord's desire. Still, devotee never gives up the exalted position he has acquired despite being checked by these impediments. Shalini, verse 5, translation and purport.
Hare Krishna, text 5, translation. Shri Sukdev Goswami said, what you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired. Purport. Shri Sukdev Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot give up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Sukdev Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aprad. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aprad, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aprada is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aprad is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, but by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to the advancement of Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. Yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kaunteya pratijanihi na mi bhakta pranasyati. Once one has taken the shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this word, Sivatamam is very significant. Sivatamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Partha neveha namutra vinasas tasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for devotees there is no question of being lost either in this life or the next. Bhagavad Gita 6.40. In Bhagavad Gita 6.43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labate porva dehikam yatate cha tato bhuya samsiddhau kuru nandana. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world just like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically perseveres in devotional service, and gradually advances until he once becomes perfect. Bilvamangal Thakur had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in this life he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances proving that once one has taken to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kaunteya pratijanihi na me bhakta pranasyati. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when one is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.28, Yesam tva atagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvantam moha nirmukta bhajate mam dhridavrata. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj has said, Matirna Krishna praparata svadavo mito bhipadyate grahavritanam. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position in the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Sivatamam Padavim. Hare Krishna.
Right, so 2 impediments, offenses against a Vaishnava and Lord's desire. But still, no matter what the impediments are, the devotee never forgets the lotus feet of the Lord. Any questions, comments, realizations?
Maharaj, Prahlada is a fine example to always it comes in mind. Impediment is his father,
Yeah, that's not
but
the
he never
impediment.
ignored.
Yeah, that's not the impediment referred to here. That's a different impediment. For Prahlad Maharaj, the impediment was material, but here the impediment. So go back to the purport. In the middle of the paragraph, the second paragraph, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, thus the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. Right? So that's a different impediment, although it's Hiranyakashipu in here. The example of Lord's impediment, two examples. One is Bharat Maharaj. That Bharat Maharaj goes on to become a deer so that we can learn not to have attachments. And the other example is Priyavrata, that you should be obedient to superiors. Then even if you enter into Grahastha life, the Grahastha life being an impediment does not become an impediment. Does that clarify?
Yes, Prabhuji. I also feel that though Maharaja Priyavrata reveals a perfect harmony, worldly duty and spiritual realization, though he was inclined towards renunciation under the guidance of Narada Muni, but still he accepted as a true obedient instruction of Lord Brahma.
Yeah, correct. And we read in the purport that when you have your mind and senses in control, means your mind and senses are fixed on Krishna, then whether you are a grahastha or whether you are a sannyasi in forest, it does not matter. And this is exactly what Krishna also told to Arjuna. And in chapter 3, Arjuna says, no, Krishna, you don't understand. I am actually overqualified for karma yoga. I'm actually qualified for Gyan yoga. I will go in the forest and meditate. Krishna says, very good. Yes, you are qualified for Gyan yoga. Still come down and perform karma yoga to set an example. And then Krishna goes on to say that if you think you are elevated, then it should not matter whether you are a sannyasi meditating in forest or fighting this war. It should not matter. Very good. Shalini Gopal.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I just had one clarification. So any, any kind of, what do I say, like Maya trying to derail one from devotional service, Prabhu, can that be an impediment?
It is an impediment, but that is more to test you and to purify you. Right? So the impediment for Bharat Maharaj was not caused by Maya. Right? That Lord created that circumstances so that we can learn the principle of Bhagavad Gita 8.5, Smaran Muktva Kalevaram. Right? We can learn that these distractions can happen at the very last moment also. Even though Bharat Maharaj is so exalted, renounced everything. Bharat Maharaj was king of the whole earth. He renounced everything, completely focused on his worship. Still he got distracted. Why? This was created by the Lord. This was not created by Maya. Shalini.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
All right, last verse for today. Uncle will read verse 6 translation.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Text 6. Sukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he saw the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the services of the Lord. Therefore, although order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus, he very consciously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. Hare Krishna.
Right, so Priyavrata is absorbed in Krishna Katha. Priyavrata's father, Swayambhuva Manu, asked Priyavrata to take charge of the kingdom because Priyavrata has all the required qualities. Now, Priyavrata's reluctance is that being absorbed in Bhakti Yoga and engaging his senses in Lord's services, therefore, Priyavrata considered that taking up the responsibility of the kingdom can divert him from devotional services. And simultaneously, he says that although superior's orders cannot be refused, still Priyavrata did not welcome this, although he goes on to accept the order. Initially, he did not welcome this. So now, because Priyavrata did not accept, so now Brahmaji will arrive to convince Priyavrata, which we'll discuss in our next class. Right now, I'll give you spiritual endeavor questions. Number 1, explain why King Parikshit was amazed that King Priyavrata remained in household life. Comes from verse number 1. Number 2, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, what are the 2 kinds of impediments to devotional service? Comes from verse number 5. And for next class, read Canto 1, Chapter 5. We'll aim to cover a lot of points, maybe the whole chapter in our next class. Questions, comments, realizations? All right, we are just about at 1 o'clock Toronto time. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna, everybody. I will send.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, I can
Hare
send the
Krishna.
link. You can
Thank
please
you.
complete your spiritual endeavors.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, Prabhuji.